Hello and welcome. My name is Brandon Wendell, Charter Market Technician. I'm going to do a little bit of analysis on some of the cryptocurrencies that are out there, some of the more popular ones, that is. Start off with the granddaddy of them all, Bitcoin. And looking at the weekly chart, this downward trend looks like it's going to continue. I can't see any kind of signs of relief as of yet. Yes, we are near an area of buying pressure where it began, but it's not really a good area of demand, unfortunately. As I take a look at the chart, there's stronger movements down here as well at 20,000. So I don't know if we're going to keep going down, but I can't really rectify this as, or make this a zone. It doesn't fit the qualifications, at least on the weekly chart. If we take a look at our previous impulse down and then our correction back up, we'll have to see if we're hitting one of those. Let's see what that's not right. We'll go to settings, see if we're hitting any kind of Fibonacci extension. And we actually are. We're hitting the 61.8% extension of the preceding impulse. So we are kind of due, I suppose, for a bit of a pullback, but this is feeling more like a correction, not a continuation of a downward, or sorry, not a reversal of the downward trend. So right here, you can see that we've got my retracements that I'm putting in right now. We'll see as we go down to smaller time frames where we might be pulling back. As we pull back for retracement before we continue to move to the downside to our next target, which is 23,270. That'll be the next downside target for the markets. So go ahead and remove that. We'll drop down to the daily time frame, and we'll look to see if there's any kind of correlation between the supply zone and any of the Fibonacci retracements. It doesn't look to be that way so far. Matter of fact, our first area of supply overhead is right here. Change the template, bear with me. And we have drop, base, and drop at 41,686 to 43,497. You can tell that we're in a corrective mode right now as well, because on this daily chart, see the smaller candles as we move up versus the large move down. Basically it took, 3 or 4 candles to move down, and it's taking over a week to move back up, even just halfway of that move. So this feels more like a retracement than it does a reversal of the trend. And people saying, oh, we're done with the downward move. It doesn't feel that way. It looks as though this wants to continue down, and all we were doing is just simply retracing. As you can see, we're retracing pretty deep. 61.8% is where we're stalling out, but it's a retracement nonetheless. So if we're lucky enough, we may be able to get back up into the 41,686, but as you can see, momentum is dying off already, and we're not even getting back up to 40. That's pretty bearish altogether. If I drop down to the 4-hour time frame, we're not only turning around at 61.8%, but that also happens to be let me see here, 618, 23.6, there it is. I just want to remove the right one here. Anyway, on this impulse to the downside that we're seeing, I think I got it right. Yeah, 61.8% also lines up with a good supply zone. So this is maybe this may have done it. This may be the move up that we're going to get before we start our move back down. So we ended up hitting that supply zone, and notice we couldn't get into bullish territory above 60. That's extremely bearish for Bitcoin. Now things could change, and we could see a pullback back up to this higher time frame supply zone. If we want to fine tune it a little bit, that would give you a target right there, rally based drop, 42,800. That's from the drop down on the weekly chart, or the daily chart. Sorry, this is the daily retracement down. So I don't know if we're going to see any kind of more movement up, but if we do break out of this 39,000 level, then 42.8 is our next target, definitely before we start moving back down. But it looks as though that we're losing out on momentum already. And if we start breaking down and making a fresh low without making a fresh high, then expect a continuation down. And initially, let's see what it would be. Better remove this out of the way. And what I'm doing is saying, okay, here's our impulse that we currently experience. And hang on, this did not set right for some reason. I'm having some problems with my mouse. There we go. And fix this last piece. Cancel. Come on. There it is. One more. There. Perfect. So if we do continue to push to the downside, our first target is actually going to be 32,375 as we move down. Unfortunately, I don't really have anywhere to be able to enter a short other than perhaps a retest of a trend line. So often what will happen is when you have a trend line that gets snapped, which there's our trend right there. We can retest it from the underside, and that gives you a shorting opportunity. So right now we go into the settings. There it is. If I extend that to the right, oh, left, sorry. Oh, it's right. No, it's backwards, that's why. Okay. So right here, as we retrace and retest what you can possibly do, because we may not make it all the way back up. If we end up hitting this line, you short. And typically what I do for a stop loss would be to put the stop above the line, although that's kind of wide, or you can do 1 ATR above. So what you would do is add in, let's see, under angles, ATR right there, average true range, there it is. So you just look at the average true range, which is about 724, and you use 1 ATR above the entry spot. So if we open up, or actually, I'm sorry, we're open right now, as we're retesting this area of supply at 38,100, you place a stop roughly 730 above, and that gives you enough of a buffer based on the volatility of security before it reaches down to its target down here. If we were to go down to a 60-minute time frame, I don't think I could fine tune that or find any supply nearby. No, it doesn't look it. So just stick with that 4 hour and look for that selling opportunity. Either here on the retest of the line with the stop loss above. So again, you're looking at about 38.8 for the stop loss. Spread around the Fibonacci level, just a little below that right there for the stop loss. Let's see if I just put it in. Right about there, 38.8. Or, again, you can always put your stop above this supply zone and expect it to come in the supply one more time. So, overall, I'm just seeing bearishness coming into this week. We go to Ethereum, again, starting off with the weekly chart, big picture, and let's clean this up from last week's notes. Don't really see anything here as far as a demand zone. We do have buying pressure coming in. So, as we've retraced, we're getting a little bit of a bounce. But again, you see we went below 40 here, and we're extremely bearish in the market. So likely to continue that move to the downside. And if we do retrace, let's see, we are really just retracing that last little impulse down. Come on. Now, what's going on with this mouse today? I apologize. Gotta replace it. There we are. And we go down to the daily time frame. And really, there's no supply overhead. As you can see, we bounced. We've retraced roughly 38%. Right now, we also hit 50% area as our initial bounce point, but extremely weak. We had nothing here. There's nothing really signaling any kind of turning point. The only supply zone we have is at the high again, and that's right here. So we've got rally-based drop supply at 32.12 to 34.12 if we can get that high. So we go down to the 4 hour time frame, just kind of fine tune this a little bit more, and it looks as though we do have another area of supply that we could contend with here. We have drop, base, 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 and drop. And that's right below the 61.8%, but we are losing momentum right now, right at the 38.2% retracement. So it'll be interesting to see if we get a divergence where we come back up to these prior highs, and the highest price we made in this area happens to be 26.40. So as we come back up and retest that 26.40, we need to make sure that the RSI is also higher. So if we can't get above 61.5 right here, as the price comes up and retest, that would be a negative divergence, and that'll signal your drop in the break of this downward move. So you can do the same thing again, where you can look for the divergence happening as we hit that line of 26.40, and if we had the divergence, you sell with your stop 1 ATR above, whatever that happens to be. So looking at the indicators and the average true range, we're talking about 75.32 for the ATR. So from 26.40 plus 75, you're looking at 27.11 and 27.15. So if you were going to be selling around that 26.40, 27, put it here, coordinates, 27.15 is pretty much what we're looking at there. We're placing the stop loss. And then the move to the downside should be a continuation of this previous impulse So for targets, and I hit the wrong one by mistake. There we go. We'll go ahead and get the Fibonacci extensions. Hopefully it worked better this time. There we are. 1, 2, and it did not. So let's try it again. Malfunctioning mouse again. There we go. 2 and 3. So now we've got our extension, and our first target would be 2041 with the second target below that. Let me just get rid of this. There we go. And the second target would be just above 1600, 1616. So that's kind of what I'm seeing here. We can go on to XRP and again start our way down from the big time frame here, the weekly. Lots of weakness going on right now. Not seeing anything saying that we're going to turn around. It's just very, very bearish, as you can see on price. Our nearest real demand. Oh, we got this we're sitting at for the second time, but with the RSI being that low, any bounce we get is not going to be a very strong one. This is our demand zone right here. We had drop, base, 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 and rally. Again, test 1, test 2, but now we're even weaker. So we may try to push down towards this lower area of demand on the weekly chart. Not too good for those people holding this long. We're getting about 31,273 to 16,985. Sorry, let's get the RSI back there. And again, as we impulse down and correct back up, we can put in our measurement for retracements here. And drop down to the daily time frame. So if we do retrace anymore, we're just kind of going sideways, but we could make it up to 38.2, but we do have a supply zone right here. It looks like at about 50% retracement. And we're losing a little bit of the bearish momentum by just going sideways. We're not really seeing bullishness creep in. It also doesn't even look like a great zone. This is just where the selling pressure begins. Really, the zone is drop, base, drop right there. And another one just above right here with just one candle for the basing. So if we could rally, yeah, the 50% could hold because it's a 50% retracement, and it's also the origin of that big selling pressure candle. That would be your next target, honestly, if we do rally at all. But this is just looking very weak, like we're just going to go sideways before we continue to impulse to the downside towards that other weekly demand zone I mentioned. And if that's the case, we have, well, honestly, this was already a move down and a retracement. You can see we're stalling out at 61.8% extension right there. So if we do move down from here, I would say your next target is the 48,996, so basically 50 cents right there is where we're headed. If we break out of the sideways range that we're stuck in right now, which the sideways range, bottom of it, pretty much right there, it's kind of the range. 59,262 to 62,633, 663. So this may be the range that if we break out of, you sell down to the 48,996 and before you get any kind of meaningful bounce. I don't see a lot coming out of this to the upside at all. Anyway, Cardano moving along here. Big picture and very weak. Just nothing showing here as any kind of bullishness. We're just maybe a little bit of divergence where prices are trying to make fresh lows, but the indicator's not. So that's suggesting we might stall out a little bit on this downward move. Going down to the daily time frame, we've had an impulse down and are trying to retrace right now, but it doesn't look like it's doing much. Kind of hanging out to 23.6, couldn't even get to 38.2. So extremely weak and may be able to continue to carry to the downside pretty soon with some of the other coins. As you can see, we retraced just a little bit. Our next target to the downside would actually be 72.56 if we do continue down from where we are. We just got to break out of the sideways range that we're in. And really, the range has gotten tight. It's just this. We're getting about 104.18 to 105.53 before we continue to the downside. I could try to bring this down to a 4-hour, see if anything changes, but it doesn't look like it. It's looking extremely bearish right now. Let me refresh and widen this. We do have supply overhead. Maybe. Yeah, rally-based drop and then drop-based drop. So just nothing looking bullish at all. Everything's really just looking like it wants to continue down. Although we're stuck in sideways motion right now where we can't seem to break out yet. The range is a little bit wider and you look at it from this time frame. 101.27 to 109.53. No real momentum in either direction, but we do rally. Well, we got the 38% retracement, and we got the zone in between that and the 50. So I'm not sure where it would stop. Just look for some sort of divergence, or if we make a move up into one of those levels and fail to get above 60 on the RSI, that's probably where we'll stall. So we can look at Solana. Again, go back to a weekly chart. Got some old notes on that, so I'll clean it up. No demand here whatsoever. We did hold above 40, though, on the RSI. And that is somewhat bullish, but not great. Go down to the daily time frame, and we are retracing the most recent impulse. Oh, why does it not keep? There it goes. I did it upside down. That's okay. Deal with that. Fix it. And there we are. So anyway, we are retracing back up, but just barely. As you can see, we're stuck at the 23.6 retracement value. So likely to be able to continue to push to the downside, and we're in a sideways basing. If we do try to rally, we actually have a supply right in the middle of a Fibonacci retracement of 50%. And that would be the 108.35 to 114.21 with the zone at 110.99 inside. So that would be your next target if we can even rally. It looks as though, like I said, we're just going sideways and may just continue our motion to the downside rather than breaking out upwards out of this. And if we do, we have the current impulse down. Our retracement, let's see. Yep. I delete that, it didn't work. And again, we'll try it. There we are. Yep. Fixed. There we are. So then your downside target, if we either break out of the range or if we are actually able to rally a little bit higher, is going to be somewhere around 65.43. If we're able to make it up to this supply zone, there we go. You're looking at a downward target then of 69.22 if we can make it up to 108.35 to 114.21. And that's all I'm really seeing there. Anyway, we can do one more. We're going to do polka dot. And again, going out to the weekly chart, big picture, cleaning this up. We do actually have weekly demand that we have not achieved yet. We've gotten close, but we haven't actually hit it. Weekly demand is right here. Just go to, whoops. The magnet on so we get the exact prices. There we are. So we've got about 1039 to 1407 that we're coming down towards. And you can see we're getting a little bit of buying pressure as we get closer. We also just barely went below 40. Going down to the daily time frame, if we bounce, we're not able to go very far. We do have lots of selling pressure overhead. And we do have a little bit of movement potentially here. See if I can get that in the right spot. There it is. About 27.63 to 28.38 before we continue to push down. There's no other really good supply zones there. We could just go sideways until we break out. And again, the breakout, which should take us down to that 14.07, the weekly demand zone just below. Not sure if that's a Fibonacci extension or not. Let's find out. The numbers are way off there. Here we go. Yeah, you can see that if we were to retrace, well, I'm sorry, we've done retracement. If we extend down, then you've got 1223, which is our downside target. If we can break out of the sideways motion that we've been in for a little while here, it's actually daily charts. It's been about 2 weeks of sideways motion here, trying to wait to see what we can do to break out of that. And the range, it's really tight actually, 1802 to 1884 that we're stuck in. But if we're likely to break out, we should break out pretty soon and then target, like I said, the 1223 to the downside. Looking at the momentum here, you see there's just no momentum. We're very, very bearish, but nothing else is happening. So overall, crypto looks pretty weak. It looks like we're going to either continue to move sideways or collapse to the downside. Or again, we could have a small retracement on some of those coins. So keep an eye out for that and keep that in your mind. Until next time, trade safe, trade well, and take care.